What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rethink Everything podcast. And this is a special episode because this is our first podcast episode where we're launching one of our brand new books. And so I'm pumped because this is book number 10. And if you get to 10, it's like, I feel like when I raised my first two kids past age 10, it was like, yes, we're doing something, you know? And so it felt really good, and I feel the same way about our Rethink Everything series. And so the 10th book, Rethink Everything You Know, about buying a home, is on Amazon. And I have our two lead authors with us this morning. Thank you guys for being here.
Good morning.
Thank you, Kyle. This is so fun.
And so I've got Meg and I've got JP, but I'm gonna let you guys, because nobody has spent more time with one another on this project than the two of you.
Right.
And so I'm gonna let you tell the world whatever you think the world needs to know about your counterpart of this book.
You go first, Megan.
Okay. Okay, world. Meet Jemma Pachiano, my friend and my partner in crime on this book. So, Jemma she currently lives in Florida, about to move back to Texas. She's an amazing mom of two really great kids who I've had the pleasure of meeting. And she is a mortgage expert. She's passionate. She wants to make the mortgage industry better. She is she's currently at is it Legend Lending?
Legend Lending. Yep.
Legend Lending, and her title's Chief Innovation Officer, but she's, like, over operations, she's over compliance, she even does little marketing, and she is still a licensed loan officer, like, on purpose, just likes to originate a loan every once in a while, so she likes to stay loan level, and there's, like, nobody who you would wanna learn about mortgages from more than Gemma.
Thank you.
And I will add, she is recording this episode with us while trying to get her house on the market in Florida so she can go to Texas where her husband already is. So she's doing all of this solo for
At Christmas.
At
And
Christmas.
it also happens to be, we'll let the cat out of the bag. We're recording this 2 days before Christmas.
Right.
So obviously, like, nobody's busy. It's very chill. And so, JP, you're the best. Thank you for sitting possibly on the floor in your house. Nobody knows.
Maybe a lawn chair. Well, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Megan. What a cool year it has been getting to know Megan Handy. She is the CMO at Embrace Home Loans. And this morning, I just have to say this fun piece. This morning, my son was looking at my phone. He saw Megan's name on the phone. He knows Megan and he goes, CMO. He goes, what's a CMO? And I said, that's the Chief Marketing Officer. And he goes, that is so fancy. And I was like, that explains Megan. Like, her marketing glow and expertise in this industry is, setting the bar. She just does such a great opportunity getting out there and creating this sense of home ownership that's really emotional, right? So, tying the consumer to this really important process and educating the industry on how to get out there and just be a great marketer, both at your zip code level and just nationwide in the industry. And so it's been such a pleasure to get to know Megan this year. It's been just a neat process from the sense that me and Megan met, and then overnight we became friends, and now we're writing a book. And so it's been this magical year of, a partnership, but not just writing a book and, finding a friend and a peer in the industry. So I love Megan. We balance each other out. I'm very organized. She's very artistic, and we've come together, and I just couldn't be more honored to be part of this project with her.
I love it.
Oh,
Y'all have done
thank
such a
you.
great job on this book. And we actually, just the other day, we were all on a Zoom call when we got the first draft of the book. And so we
Yes.
got to kind of start looking through it together. And I'm so excited for people to see it. My first question to you guys is, you've been able to buy a home for a really long time. It's been the American dream since before any of us were alive. And so you would think that the home buying world would be convoluted with so much education, and it would be crystal clear for how you should buy a home, the process, but the reality is it's not. And so why was now the right time to really pour your efforts into educating the buyer in this world?
That's a great question, especially where we're at this phase of just everything available on the internet, right? So you're a click away from information. And I actually think that impedes the process because it's so much information and you don't really know if you're not in the industry how to start connecting those dots. And so, how do you sequentially go through that process in a way that makes sense, but also in a way that's simple and a way that makes you feel like, okay, I do A, then I do B, then I do C, without having to piece it together on the internet or piece it together from your mom or dad who went through the process. And so it just felt like the perfect time to just oversimplify it, put together, just a clear path of how to get from thought to closing and, so it just felt right, especially, in a world with too much information. How can we
Yeah.
compartmentalize it and simplify it?
And I would say that right now, like, as we're into, so we're to Gemma's point, there's so much information available, right, online. So it's not like a shortage of information, but you don't know that it's all good information. And then I would say, like, the resounding thing you're going to see online is there's an affordability crisis. Millennials never bought a home. The first time home buyers now headed towards 40. And just this concept of like kind of a belief that that home ownership dream is dead for younger people. Certainly it's more challenging, but then I keep running into people who are young in their 20s who are buying real estate. And oftentimes, what the common thread is that like their parents gave them this advice or their parents were real estate investors or their parents are in our industry. The people who I know in our industry, their kids are buying homes. So I also wanted like that inside scoop and that type of strategic advice of like, there are options. You can't, it might not be cookie cutter, 20% down, marry two kids and one dog, white picket fence, I buy my first home. It might not be that, but getting into the real estate game early is still possible if you know kind of like this inside intel. So that's another reason I really wanted to bring this to market.
So, do you guys think that, because I remember when I bought my first home in my mid-20s, back then, that wasn't far off from the
Mhm.
average first-time home buyer, and you mentioned it now, we've seen the average first-time home buyer move basically to 40. Do you guys think that is that large part because of just the lack of knowledge and understanding of, like, how it all works, or are there other factors involved as well?
Clearly there's a lot clearly the knowledge is a big part of it of kind of like back like different types of strategies, creative ways to buy a home. I think that the knowledge is missing there. But there is definitely a lot of factors. I'm not trying to downplay the affordability crisis. It is very, very real, and in most of our metros, homeownership is a challenge at the average salary. But I think there was like a lot of different sort of social factors and the way people look at money and the way people look at work that have led people maybe not to take that step to commit to buying a house also, right? That's a whole nother book.
Yeah. Yeah, well, for 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things pulled together. I call it contributory, factors. And so I think that it starts out with affordability. I think inflation, which ties into affordability. I think life is different since COVID, it just is. Life is different. And I also think that, just the amount of information that's out there can lean someone to make it feel like it's a negative experience. And so I think you have all these competing things coming in, and it's almost like people freeze. What do I do? What do I do?
Mm,
Where do I go? How do I start this process? And so, unless you have someone, to Megan's point, someone guiding you, a parent in the industry, a parent who's an investor, You don't really know where to go for that kind of grounding person to say, hey, this is a great investment. This is a great, this is a great thing for your family as well. And so I think that it's just different. The path used to be much clearer, right? It's like
Yep.
buy a house and, start, earlier in your 20s. And that has changed. And so I think it's a mix of everything, whether it be the media, whether it be social media, whether it be inflation, affordability, you start mixing that all up. And I think people just kind of freeze and they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to buy a house. And so just trying to break that narrative and bring the excitement back to buying a house. I mean, there's not just a financial piece, but there's lots of statistics out there that say, people's quality of life and how you raise your family also intrinsically changes too when you're in a house. And so just kind of bringing that back to the forefront.
Yeah, that's so good. I want to run down who this book is for. Obviously, the title would say if you've never bought a house before, then yes, you better pick up a copy of this book and read it before you start making those moves. But who else that may be watching or listening to the podcast, who else would this be for other than just the first time home buyer?
Hmm.
I mean, it's for everyone because we have a whole section on strategies, right? So you may have been a traditional home buyer in the past, and now you're looking for alternative ways to invest, or you have an alternative scenario in your financial profile that you need different ideas on how to go purchase a house. So it's not just first time home buyers, it can be, move up buyers, transitional buyers, investors, but I do think it's for anyone who is trying to build their financial knowledge. And so it could be someone who is buying a house. It could be for somebody, a mom or a dad they want to just instill financial knowledge in their children. It could be for a realtor or a loan officer who wants something to give their prospective buyers. But anybody who is touching that home buying process, not just first time home buyers, just people looking for alternative ideas or just looking for a simplistic breakdown of what that process looks like today, this book is for them. It's such a broad audience,
Yeah.
which just makes it really exciting.
Yeah, I would agree about maybe people in the industry because the folks that we ask to participate in this book is really it's a star-studded lineup, but they really, really know their niche. Like, we were very deliberate. We didn't just call up a bunch of our favorite people and say, "Write about buying a home." Like, Gemma and I really took a lot of time of, like, exactly what topics we thought needed explaining, and then we went out and sought out people who knew those topics. So, if you are a mortgage lender or a realtor who would like to just learn some good ways to explain difficult topics from people who are experts on that, this would be a good like, steal their explanations, like, I think it's a good the way that some of them, like, bring their background and articulate exactly what their particular niche is, like, and whether, like Danielle Anderson is an example. She's a mortgage loan officer who I just came across on Instagram because I wanted to talk about short-term rentals and that type of house hacking, and I saw her posting about it, so I reached out, and she's a star, and she's amazing, but not every you could be a really great real estate expert, but not know much about short-term rentals, so grab this book, and you have that for your buyer who is looking to do something like.
So good. I wanna put y'all on the spot a little bit and ask you, not I'm not asking for your favorite chapter, but was there a chapter that just as all the chapters were coming in, and of course you already know the topics, was there a chapter that like just kind of jumped off the page and wowed you, was even better than you expected it to be? Like if you've got one of those, can you briefly talk about that?
I mean, Megan just talked about hers, which Danielle's is great. But definitely, I think the student loan chapter on how to navigate student loans. So there was some really just, I don't want to call them hacks or strategies because you're not necessarily tricking the system, but just like very matter of fact, like, hey, everybody has student loans.
Yeah.
Everybody has challenges related to student loans, whether it's, they're in forbearance and you're about to get hit with a big payment, or you need to consolidate, or what you qualify for is impeded. And so it's kind of like these aha moments. There was two or three just like aha moments, even for me, where it's like, we're just going to simplify this and we're going to make this okay. And there's 100 ways we can navigate this. And so just really bringing a sense of calm. And so I felt like the student loan chapter brought a sense of calm because I know student loans is a
Wow.
huge topic in the media.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is normal. We can navigate this. I can still buy a house, even if I have these student loans. And so I had a couple chapters where I just like, okay, sense of calmness. Like this really brought some just like zen into that process that people hear like, oh, you'll never be able to buy a house because you have all these student loans. You're like, okay, I can do this. There's expert out there who can guide us through that.
I love that. We need to get what we're gonna do in 2026 is my team is gonna work on getting people, like, into their local news markets
Mhm.
talking about that,
Yeah.
right? Because that needs to be talked about, and there's a dozen other things in the book that need to be on news programming and discussed, and so we're gonna work on making that happen in 2026, which is gonna be exciting. Um, Meg, do you I know you'd mentioned Danielle before I even asked the question. Is there another chapter that kinda stood out to you?
Another one that I think would be important to be on local news programs is the down payment assistance chapter. That there are so many options out there. That was by Brad Cardwell, but the down payment assistance chapter was done really, really well with actual examples of some buyers who have benefited. And that is really important to me to like tie those back to some some success stories and some wins.
Yeah,
And that's something that people just don't know is available, and I think you hear mixed messages about down payment assistance programs, like, I've seen some, things online kinda negative on down payment assistance, like, it might trap a buyer into, a silent second, they don't know about all that, but, um, Brad really sheds a light on all the really good actual grants, like, free money you can apply for,
yeah.
it's just so I think that's the type of thing that is worth getting the book for, right? Just that resource, and then certainly, I think that's the type of we gotta get Brad on a, local morning he was made for local morning TV, so we gotta make that happen.
I love it. We're gonna make it happen for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what is the so we get to the end of 2026, and this book has been out for a year. What do you want to be said about the book by the people that read the book that would just fill your heart with so much joy and accomplishment that, like, this mattered and impacted people?
Well, I'll tie back a really important word that just made me think of when you were talking about being on the news, right? And being at the local level and talking about these things. And one of my big mantras this year has just been advocacy, right? Having conversations and educating outside of our community. I think we do a really good job within our peer group talking about the industry and advocating, but we need
Yep,
to talk outside of the industry, right? And so we need to talk to the people in our communities. We need to talk to the news channels. We need to talk to the constituents who, ultimately drive the regulations and the guardrails in our industry. And we need to be able to educate outside of the industry so that people can buy homes and feel good about it. And so that we can set regulations and guardrails that actually make sense for the industry. And so it all just kind of ties back to education, which is a really big thing for me, which is ultimately why I chose to do this with Megan is I spent so many years educating realtors, educating buyers, educating my peers. And so we need to do more educating at a real technical level so that the process feels comfortable and so that we make global decisions based off true technical nuances in the industry. So, like, two big words, if we're going into 2026, would be advocacy and education.
I love that. Meg, take us
Mm.
home.
I just want I want somebody to be inspired and come up with a strategy and become a homeowner because they read this book.
Yeah.
Just one person, and how
Yeah.
amazing would that be? Like,
It would be incredible.
yeah.
And so for those of you watching, listening, if you know people in the in the educational system at the college level, we want to know them because we believe that this book would be unbelievable in sending those students out into the real world with the knowledge of how to become a homeowner. If you know people in local news, if you know people that run magazines, newspapers, this is the education that our country needs right now, and we would be honored to be the group that brings it to you guys. Meg, JP, you guys are so great. Thank you for taking on this book. You need to follow these ladies. Links to their socials will be in the notes of the episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kyle.